This is This Week Tonight with John Irvin, and this time around I have Chris Perry.
You
Chris,
do.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you, my friend.
Nice to have met you. Now, Chris is a host for Whaler Sports TV. And
I am.
Chris, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I was lucky enough several years ago. Gino hooked me up to do some TV and through the athletic department. And since I've been involved with the athletic department for a long time, first as a school committee rep and now refereeing, I was fortunate enough to start with the women's program and occasionally once in a while jump into the men's lacrosse program. So Gino has promised me there's a 7-second delay between when we speak and when it goes on the air.
We're constantly cutting you off.
Oh yeah, so we have a good time, and there's nothing like Dick Herman, a real island institution, great guy, and working with Gino and Dick is a lot of fun.
You bet.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that you have played lacrosse a little bit yourself.
Yeah, I started out as a little shaver, then went to Tabor Academy, played there, and then on to college at Washington College of Maryland and played there. And it's one of those sports that's kind of hard to continue along as a young adult. So
Now, where is Tabor Academy?
Tabor's over in Marion, Mass, just off the Cape. My daughter graduated last year from Tabor. So the lacrosse, first to answer that question, the refereeing was a natural. I wanted to coach, but it's hard to do the full-time commitment that these coaches have to do, whether it's softball, football, swimming, lacrosse. You know, it's such a time commitment, and I was unable to do that. So a lot of kudos to those coaches out there. And so I've been refereeing since I was about 18 and stayed with the lacrosse and a little bit of football and basketball, but I really love the lacrosse. As far as the experience goes with Tabor, obviously I have nothing but great things to say, having gone there myself and graduated in '78. And at the time there was a strong connection between Nantucket and Tabor. There were probably 10 or 12 kids from the island who went there, and there was a strong tie, and it sort of waned a little bit, but it's come back nicely. And you know, it's living on a small island and being part of the community. It's a tough choice when you have to decide between taking somebody out of the community and going to a prep school like Tabor or staying involved. I had 3 children. My 3 oldest ones graduated from Nantucket High and did very well. My next daughter went to Berkshire Academy in Western Mass, and we offered the same opportunity if she was interested, and Hannah jumped at it. And
to go to Tabor.
Yeah, and it's like the best of both worlds because we could shoot over on the fast boat, see a game, or go to a meeting, and at the same time jump on the fast boat back, and she can still have her independence, and we weren't sort of giving everything up. So it was a great experience. Hated to see it leave. Again, there's a real strong tie between the community and Tabor, at least getting stronger. The Tabor Boy comes here every summer. They have some fundraising events. And I think you'll see with this new headmaster as the years go along, there'll be more of a stronger tie between Nantucket and Tabor.
Sure. Now, I'm sure you have a lot of good things to say about Tabor, and I'm sure that you miss your daughter very much, but isn't it hard to let a kid go away to school? What do you go through?
It's very hard, and I think having gone to Tabor and having Emily who also go away to prep school, it prepares you a little bit more, but it's hard. It's emotional. My wife and I struggled with it. You know, selfishly we want her in our home, but the opportunities that the school provides, you have to look at it from her perspective. There were some growing pains on both sides, and she had
I was just going to ask you about that. I'm sure she has been growing because of the...
Yeah, it was a tough first year, and now as a freshman at college at Charleston, the transition for her from high school to college went much easier because I think of the experiences, especially just boarding and living in the school environment and building a strong foundation academically. I think it prepared her better for college. But it's hard they're only 14. It's not like they're 16 or 18, and that first year or two was tough, but she battled through it, and there was a lot of tearful nights those first months. You know, we just had to
on both sides of the water, I'm sure.
Brutal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of funny stories, but there was one funny story I remember where she was like the second or third night and marched into the headmaster's office and said, "I want my dropout papers." And he said, "What are you dropping out from?" "I'm going home." And he said, "Okay, we can that's what you'd like to do. Well, how are you going to get to, how are you going to get home? And she goes, well, I'm going to take a cab to the ferry and take the ferry home. And he said, okay. I think the cabs aren't running right now. Why don't you sleep on it for the night and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Well, my daddy gave me some emergency $20 of emergency money, and I'm going to use that $20 for the cab ride. And so we got through that night, and then the second, third, fourth, and eventually she did great, and it's a terrific facility.
That's a good headmaster.
Very good. He was from Brooks School up in North Andover, where she was also interested in. And once he decided to become headmaster at Tabor, we sort of followed him down there, and he's really turned the school around.
Well,
nice
good.
job. Yeah.
Good, good. Tell us a little bit about you. I understand that you have Sherborne
Yep.
Management Company.
Yep. Sherborne Management Company is a property management business that I own and run with my son and son-in-law. And then I'm also have a partner, Tim Veith, and Tim and I own White Hart Construction, which is a construction development company that is building a number of projects on the island, and so far so good.
Now, for those out there that don't know the history of the name Sherborne,
Well, it's funny you should ask, because I originally picked the name Sherborne because the name Nantucket originally was Sherborne, not Nantucket Island, but Sherborne. So I thought,
Exactly.
oh, that will give me instant credibility, or instant name recognition, I should say. And that was back in like the 80s, but nobody knew that Nantucket was named Sherborne, so nobody put the two and two together. So the only funny thing that I've gotten out of the name Sherborne is I routinely get mail from Sherborne Commons
Oh, for
or
heaven's
Sherborne
sakes.
Associates, and I haven't nipped any of the checks yet, and I haven't paid any of the bills yet.
good.
But outside of that, it's just good old Sherborne Management.
So the first settlement on Nantucket was called Sherborne.
Correct.
And by the 1660s, the 20 proprietors were living there. And then they moved to, northwest of Sherborne, which was kind of more mid-island. Not
Correct.
mid-island, but toward the west.
Wasn't it where the Tuppence property is?
I believe so.
Right. I think originally they were in the sort of the Matticat area, and then shifted towards Tuppence, I believe, and then from there, obviously, into the town.
Yeah. And from the 1660s, about 130 years later, we finally became Nantucket.
Yeah. So I'm not planning on changing to Nantucket Property Management. I'm going to
Good.
stick with the Sherborne Property
Good.
Management.
Very good.
So-
Very good. Well, Chris Perry, thank you very
Well,
much
thank
for
you for
joining
inviting
us.
me down. Anytime Gino's
Thanks,
kicking
Chris.
around, I always like to see what's going on. He's got a man of many hats, and it's always good to say hello.